But for the mug, what you're going to want to do is we're going to take our beer bottle wrapped in a sock, or your water bottle wrapped in a sock, and using some string, I'm just going to wrap it around the bottle, and that'll tell me how long my strip of clay needs to be. So I'm going to lay that on the clay, and then I'm going to add about an inch. So my strip of clay is plenty long enough for this project. What you're going to want to do next is pick one side of the clay, and you just want to cut a piece that's going to be the bottom of the mug. I'm just going to cut it with the credit card here. I'll show you in the center of the board that I've got about ½ inch of space all the way around the bottle on this piece of clay. I'm going to set this over to one side because that's going to be the bottom. And then with this piece of clay that's left, this is going to be the wall. So I'm going to pick one side to be the bottom, and the bottom is going to lose some of the texture. So pick your least favorite side to be the bottom. I'm just going to lay a straight line here, and I'm going to cut some of that extra clay off. And the extra clay is going to go back in the bag to keep it wet. And now, what you're going to want to do is make sure you've got one straight line on one side, like that, and you are ready to start assembling your mug. What you're going to want to do is take your bottle here, and you're going to drape the strip of clay across it. This is where you might need help from the older artist if you're especially young. And you're just going to want to gently wrap the clay all the way around the bottle. And so here, you're going to want to cut this extra clay off, but you want to leave some clay to overlap, about as wide as your finger, or about ½ an inch. So I'm going to just gently set this down on the board, like that. And that way I can see I've got that amount of overlap. So that's what we're looking for. And then you choose which side you want to be covered by the other. I'm going to choose this side with the comb design. And you're just going to want to like pinch that a little bit to make it slanted already, just to make that connection point easier. So from here, you're going to want to take some slip that you have. It's off camera, but it's the same watered down clay mixture that David described in one of the previous videos. And you just want to spread some along that. Take your scoring tool, and you just want to scratch the clay there. And I'm going to scratch this clay on this side as well. And with that done, you can lay this clay across the other clay. And you just want to gently press. Remember, like, if you have it against your board, you're going to lose some of that texture on the other side. So you can pick it up in your hand, or you can just accept that you might lose some of the texture, which is going to happen. And then you just want to press with your finger or with your thumb. And again, many small strokes are more successful than one aggressive stroke. I'm just trying to work quickly here so that we can get through the project in this video. But you just want to spread it with your finger nice and smooth, like that. And if you want to leave a hammered texture, you can do that. If you really want to make it smooth, you can just take your time with it and spread it with your fingers. Or with that silicone spatula and just gently wipe. If you're putting a handle on your mug, this is a fine place to put that handle, and it'll hide a lot of that texture in the seam. So with that done, we're going to make the bottom now. And I'm going to put the textured side of the clay down, because you don't want texture inside of your mug. You want your mug to be nice and smooth on the inside, because any cracks or seams on the inside are going to be a breeding ground for bacteria if cream or sugar gets stuck in your mug. So I'm going to cut this piece of clay, leaving about somewhere between £1/4 inch and ½ inch all the way around the mug, so that there's extra clay for it to bind. And it doesn't have to be a perfect circle, but I am going to refine the shape just a little bit. but you can still see there's about 1/4 inch of clay all the way around the mug on this one. Take your extra clay and set it back in your bag. And now what you want to do is spread some more slip all the way around the clay where the walls of your mug and the floor of your mug are going to meet. Then you're going to score that again, same way. And I'm also going to score the bottom of the mug. So you might get some on your sock, but that's okay. So with those two pieces all nice and scratched together, what you want to do then is, being gentle as you hold your mug so that you don't ruin too much of your texture there, is set the mug on top of the clay, and holding it with all your hands, you just kind of want to wiggle it around back and forth a little bit like this to get the clay to gel. And then you want to come around, and while it's still flat on the table, you want to kind of pinch that clay at the bottom and wipe it up the wall of the mug on the outside. And this is where I said you were going to lose some of the texture on the bottom. You can replace some of that texture in a second, but just accept that you might lose some clay at the bottom. I'm going to do it like this so you guys can see. You really want to get a good connection there. So I'm wiping that clay actually pretty far up the mug. It's going up about 1 inch. All the way around. And once you've got that smoothed out so that it's nice and well attached, then you can worry about making it look pretty if you want. But so right now, what I'm going to do, this is an option. You don't have to, but if you want to have a beveled edge at the bottom, you don't need to press just the weight of the beer bottle itself. You can just roll the bottle back and forth a little bit, and this is where the sock is extra handy to hang on to it. If you don't have a sock that you want to use for this project, you can always wrap your water bottle in newspaper or wrap your beer bottle in newspaper, but I think that the sock is the easiest. So right now, that's pretty well smoothed out. It's pretty well attached. Some of this texture has been lost. If you want to put some of that texture back in, you can try, or you can just put in new texture. But it won't work as successfully as when you had the clay flat. So that's just something to accept. You can just, again, roll back and forth a couple times. And that's why the lace is extra handy, because it's flexible and it can go back in like that. If I try to scrape this line back in with the comb, it's going to be more difficult because the comb isn't going to make contact with the clay at all the points. So you just might have to be more patient. So from there, you want to set it flat. And this is the fun part, where you reach inside your sock and you pull out the beer bottle first, or the water bottle, and then you pull out the sock. And so that is how you make the mug. I'm going to cut this mug shorter so that you can see what I'm doing on the inside. But if you want to go for the bonus points of having a tall mug, you can do that. If you want to have a shorter mug, it's actually easier to cut it before you take out the beer bottle, but I forgot. So I'm just going to cut this time with the credit card, but you could cut with your needle or with your nail or toothpick. There. So if you can see inside, there are some lines on the inside of the mug where that seam was, and there's lines all the way around the bottom where the two pieces of clay joined. And those lines are things that we want to smooth out, not for aesthetics, but because we want it to be safe to eat out of. So what you want to do is, I find it helpful, you can smooth it out with your finger, you can smooth it out with that popsicle stick that David gave you. I find it helpful to take an old paintbrush, if you have one, dip it in water, and then dry it. So all you want here are bristles that are damp. The bristles should just stick to each other. You don't want it dripping. And then what you're going to do is supporting the mug. I'm going to tilt it so you can see, but you can leave it on the table while you're doing this. You want to support the other side when you're wiping always, and you just want to wipe back and forth, and the clay will get caught in the paint bristles and smooth over a little bit. So if you can see here, if you can see as that line gently gets smoothed away, that is what you're looking for, because you want the clay to be nice and smooth and clean on the inside. And again, like, this is something where you kind of want to take your time, and if you find that the clay is just too soft and soggy and every time you wipe it the clay gets more out of whack, you might just want to set the mug aside and let it dry out in a plastic bag for about half an hour or so, or just leave it and come back to it in a moment. Just to give the clay a chance to firm up a little bit, and then you may find that the clay is less soggy. The other important points that you want to make sure that you address are the rim. If you take a look at this rim here and the rim on this mug here, I've already smoothed this one out. The way you want to do that is, I find it handy to put your hand all the way around the mug like this just to support the wall. Dip your fingers in your water, not dripping but just a little tiny bit wet, and if you just run your fingers along that lip or wipe with your thumb even, that'll do a lot to smooth out the clay and make it comfortable to drink out of. You want a similar sort of look to the way David had it in the coil building mugs, where the clay is nice and smooth. So that is the mug project.